Okay, it's going to be a review of WrestleMania 21. Wanted to get this up before WrestleMania, and I don't think I've ever reviewed this show. I'm 99% sure that I didn't, but I would say that it's one of my favorite WrestleManias ever. I would say that I think 2005, when I look back on it, I think it was the last great year the WWE had. I know that's debatable, but I really think the decline of the WWE started with the move to the USA Network. I really think that had a lot to do with the decline. But yeah, man, WrestleMania 21, you still had a great roster. You know, some of our favorite wrestlers were still alive. Some of our favorite wrestlers were still healthy and young. And I just think 2005 was a pretty magical year. And this WrestleMania 21, WrestleMania Goes Hollywood, had a great feel to it from Los Angeles, from the Staples Center. A lot of the big money matches had very nicely billed matches, and it got a great buy rate. I think the buy rate was actually better than WrestleMania 19, 20, better than WrestleMania 22 as well. I think it did over 1 million buys. A lot of the credit really goes to Triple H and Batista. But I think a lot of the credit should also go to Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels, because I remember how many people were excited about that match. I also think John Cena, JBL, deserves a lot of credit for that buy rate as well, because I think at that time there was like a lot of little kids that just watched SmackDown and weren't allowed to watch Raw. So I could see Cena, JBL really adding a lot of viewers to that buy rate as well. So yeah, WrestleMania 21, they had a lot of great vignettes too. A lot of movie-themed vignettes. Like they had Booker T, Eddie Guerrero that did a comedy thing out of Pulp Fiction. They did, Stacy Keibler did the Sharon Stone thing from Basic Instinct, where she, spreads her legs when she crosses her legs. I think it was Jericho, Christian, and Benoit that were actually interrogating her. That was pretty cool. I think Triple H and Flair did like a Braveheart thing. So that's one of the. This is one of the most creative, promotional tools for WrestleMania that I can remember. The WrestleMania Goes Hollywood. So let's go right down to it. The first match tonight was actually Eddie Guerrero taking on Rey Mysterio. So this is Eddie Guerrero's last WrestleMania match, and I thought the match. What a great way to open up the show. I mean, you would think that this would end up being one of the best WrestleMania openers of all time, but it really wasn't. There were some people that were kind of baffled by the finish. You know, when you look back on it, you understand that they were doing these types of finishes to set up Eddie Guerrero's heel turn on Rey Mysterio. But at the time, like I think a lot of people felt frustrated that Ray was going over Eddie in all these matches. Like he was just pinning him out of nowhere, small packages, just pinning predicaments out of nowhere that you would expect Eddie to kick out, and Eddie was just showing like frustration after all these finishes here. So but yeah, some of the complaints about the match was that Rey Mysterio was having mask problems. That didn't take away from the match for me too much, but you would just envision Eddie and Ray going out there and putting on a Halloween Havoc match, considering this was WrestleMania. But to me, it felt like they were holding back just a bit, but it was still awesome, man. Eddie Guerrero's work in 2005 is it's some of my favorite work ever. I think the feud with him and Mysterio, when you go back and you watch the feud in its entirety, it was more about the story than the matches, but looking back on it, I thought it was extremely well done. It really got Rey Mysterio ready for the main event of WrestleMania going into 2006. But yeah, man, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, that was the opener right there. So next up, you had the Money in the Bank ladder match. This to me, this is still the best Money in the Bank ladder match, I would say. It's debatable, but because it was the first time, because of the talent involved, because it had such a there was such a wowness factor to it, being the first time. And, I was just watching Edge's documentary recently. I was going to review it, but, it's tough to review documentaries, considering, Edge has a big match coming up at WrestleMania. I wanted to watch his You Think You Know Me documentary. And in that documentary, he was saying that, at first, like, they really had to push him into having this match, like, because he didn't want to have any ladder matches because of his neck issues. But once he realized how special and how groundbreaking this match could be, he finally agreed to be a part of it. So yeah, that was kind of interesting, and when you watch the match back, Edge really did a lot of crazy things too. He actually took a T-bone suplex off the top of the ladder from Shelton Benjamin. So in this match, you had Edge, Shelton Benjamin, Christian, who was on the verge of really breaking out. He was cutting some of the best promos of his career. You had Jericho, who in 2005 was kind of, you could tell he was kind of burning out, and then you had Chris Benoit, who actually wrestled this match with several stitches right above his eye. And then you had Kane, who Edge referred to as the dark horse in the match. And it was really an awesome match right here. I would say Shelton Benjamin really stole the show when you look at some of his spots, especially the when he sprinted up the ladder to clothesline Jericho off the top of the ladder. That was really cool. The story of the match, though, was that, it really gave Edge a lot of heat because he had that finish where Benoit was about to grab the belt, and then he clocked him with the chair, and fans started booing the shit out of Edge. This 2004, 2005, this was the most hated I think Edge ever was. And, him winning the Money in the Bank, it really set the tone for him and, gave him a lot of momentum heading into the summertime where he had that great feud with Matt Hardy. But yeah, I mean, just some crazy stuff here. And, I did see the Benoit documentary as well as the OJ documentary. And hopefully this week, I want to do a video on both, kind of tie in Benoit and OJ together. But just want to focus on the match right here. Benoit, the flying headbutt off the top of the ladder. Are you fucking kidding me? No wonder. God, that motherfucker is crazy. But, it's just, we just don't know. We didn't know now what we know back then. And, it's even tough to talk about. But, yeah, Benoit's selling in this match is some of the greatest selling of all time. Some people have stated that Benoit's selling was so believable that it really took this match up to the next level. So, yeah, great Money in the Bank ladder match. I really think this definitely holds up. And, I'm not a big, like I said, guys, I'm not a big fan of, I think the Money in the Bank thing, I think it oversaturated the business. I think it was bad for the business. But for the very first time, it definitely worked. And it definitely worked for the heel character of Edge. And, that was one of the most special moments of all time when Edge finally cashed in his Money in the Bank against John Cena later on that year. It definitely worked that very first year. I would definitely say that looking back on it. So from there, we have young Randy Orton challenging The Undertaker. This was kind of like a consolation prize for Orton. When Orton lost the belt and Triple H turned on him and Randy Orton turned babyface, it was all over the internet that the initial plans for WrestleMania 21 was for Randy Orton to win the belt back from Triple H. Those plans leaked early, and because of Orton's character, it just wasn't catching on, and Orton started to get booed around the Royal Rumble, and you saw the emergence of Dave Batista go to another level. Having Orton and Triple H just felt like a very stale and uncreative WrestleMania main event. Plus, you had just seen it in the main event of Unforgiven. So, a lot of people just weren't excited to see Orton and Triple H for the title at WrestleMania. So they decided to do Triple H and Orton at the Rumble, which was a very weird match. But Orton lost the match, and he was involved in a relationship with Stacy Keibler, which really didn't really go anywhere. But you're looking back on it, you understand why they did it. They did it for the moment to turn Orton back heel. So since Orton wasn't good, this is kind of like CM Punk to a degree. A lot of people thought CM Punk should have main evented WrestleMania against, The Rock or John Cena, maybe a triple threat match in 2013. But for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And the consolation prize was The Undertaker. And it's the same thing here. It's like the consolation prize is The Undertaker. Well, that's not a bad consolation prize. And you could argue that The Undertaker, beating The Undertaker's streak is more important than the belt. I would say when Punk challenged Taker that's probably more of an accurate statement. Here, the streak thing really didn't, it caught on, but it wasn't like overwhelming the way it became several years down the road. So yeah, Undertaker and Randy Orton. It was it was a natural feud. It was a Raw versus SmackDown dream match, and at the same time, Orton was still young. He was still the legend killer. I prefer this Randy Orton, to be honest with you. I prefer the Orton that was a little bit young and reckless and willing to take a chance over the family man that was more concerned about making money and having longevity. So I like the young Randy Orton, and even in 2005. He still ended up having an amazing year, especially once he went over the SmackDown. But yeah, the Orton and Undertaker match, I wouldn't say it was great, but it was refreshing. It was really good. It kind of got the Undertaker jump started on a nice little long string of quality WrestleMania matches. A lot of creative things. Undertaker's counter to the RKO where he tosses Orton out of the ring, and there was a beautiful RKO counter out of the Undertaker's choke slam. So that was really cool. Then Cowboy Bob Orton, he was involved in this feud as well, telling Undertaker not to destroy Randy Orton's career because he has a chance to be the future of the WWE. So he came into play and hit Undertaker with his cast. So that was a great near fall. And I just thought they had a quality match. I wouldn't say it was great, but it was refreshing though, man, because you had never seen Orton and Undertaker mix it up because they were separated for a very, very long time. I believe that was their first meeting since SmackDown 2002 when Orton was a rookie on SmackDown. So definitely good stuff there. And next up you have Trish Stratus defending the women's championship against Christy Hemme, who ended up winning the Diva Search. All right, so the Diva Search was interesting. A lot of people crap on it looking back on it, but there were some really hot girls at that time. Probably the biggest star that emerged out of that Diva Search, the first one, ended up being Maria Kanellis, especially in Ring of Honor with the prodigy Mike Bennett. She probably became the biggest star. The Christy Hemme, I can see why Christy won. I think Vince probably liked her because of her. She kind of had like this sexual, over the top energy. And so that's probably why she won. But I would say a lot of people thought Carmella was actually the hottest girl from the original Diva Search. But the problem is she was like the opposite of Christy. She just had a bad attitude. She wouldn't show up. But in terms of looks go, I think it was undeniable. She was probably the hottest looking girl out of that bunch. But, Trish had turned heel at WrestleMania 20, and she had been a heel as the women's champion. Lita actually got hurt. I believe it was like at New Year's Revolution. She had a really bad knee injury, and that ultimately that led to her and Edge developing a stronger relationship. Ironically, so Lita was more of like Christy Hemme's trainer in this match. I guess the original plans would have been Lita and Trish, but those got scrapped for Christy Hemme. And, Christy had a tough time, though. You could tell she wasn't quite ready for prime time. There was a lot of awkward pinfalls by her in this match. But, Trish really carried this match because of her looks and her charisma. This is pretty good eye candy at the time, but there's a lot of people frustrated about the choice of, some of the women that were getting title shots. And I remember they even asked Vince McMahon about it, and he was like, well, times have changed. But thank God, that's really not the case anymore with the whole Diva Search dominating the women's division. So definitely, Trish was a really good heel, though. I think she earned a lot of respect because she was able to combine great wrestling with just being hot, and I think a lot of people look back very fondly of Trish's career in a positive light. All right, so next up you have Kurt Angle taking on Shawn Michaels. We just talked about this match. This is obviously I stated that it's a Raw versus SmackDown dream match, but the interesting thing about this match for me was, how do you make this work where you got two of the greatest pro wrestlers of all time still active, but on different shows that have never crossed paths before? I mean, you could make a case, Angle and Michaels, both of these guys were employed or getting paychecks from the WWE since late 1998, but they have absolutely no history together. And Angle even stated that he didn't even really know who Shawn Michaels was until Survivor Series 2003. So how does that happen? Like, how do you make a feud like this work where you have two great workers that absolutely know nothing about each other? Well, you could always be creative. And this is, WWE should be proud of how creative they got, because when you look back to 1996, a lot of people thought Shawn Michaels had one of the best years in the history of the business. PWI actually ranked Michaels in 96 out of all the PWI 500 winners as the very best year of anyone to win the PWI 500. So that speaks to how praised Shawn Michaels' work in the ring was. And then when you look back to 1996, obviously that's when Kurt Angle won the Olympic gold medal in amateur wrestling. So they talked about how Angle was frustrated that, when you look back in 1996, all anyone wanted to talk about was Shawn Michaels putting on this wrestling clinic, coming out of the rafters and putting on the Iron Man match. But, Angle has always stated that, his favorite match, and, like I said, the Iron Man match, my favorite WrestleMania match of all time. Some people think it's boring, but amongst the wrestlers, this is a lot of people's favorite WrestleMania match. I know Triple H has stated that was his pick. Angle has stated that, that's one of his favorite matches. Angle was a huge fan of Bret Hart as well. When he, Angle was one of these guys that wanted to go back and watch old matches and just learn a lot. And that's what made Angle so good, that he was willing to learn. So that was kind of the backstory there. And then you did the whole thing with, how do you make a feud like this work where one guy has to stay on Raw, one guy has to stay on SmackDown? And it definitely worked. They set it up the Royal Rumble where Shawn Michaels eliminated Angle. And Angle came back in to attack Shawn, and then they did the whole thing on SmackDown where Angle mocked Shawn Michaels' career by bringing out Marty Jannetty, making him tap out, singing the Sexy Boy song with Sensational Sherry. So they did a really good job of, making the best out of a kind of inconvenient situation, I would say. But, you guys know the match is incredibly amazing. I think you have arguably the two best performers. Shawn Michaels is more of the sports entertainer performer. Angle's more of the mat technician performer. So I thought Angle had a pretty uneventful 2004. He kept getting these neck injuries. He was very limited in what he can do. So I felt like if Angle was gonna be a player again, he really needed a good showing here and probably to go over as well. And Michaels really had like when you look back at Shawn Michaels' return, he had took the summertime off after having that Hell in a Cell match with Triple H, and when he came back, I think Kane injured him in the eye. That's why Shawn's eye, it looks a little weird. So he had the eye injury, and then he tore his medial meniscus in the Taboo Tuesday disaster with Triple H, when he was actually voted in. So Michaels was always getting hurt too. So I think Michaels stated he was really nervous about the match because the expectations were so high. And, Michaels, he really didn't have a lot of momentum heading into this thing. But you could tell just by looking at him, he trained extra hard for this to keep up with Angle here. No, the mat wrestling they did in the beginning, it wasn't as engaging as some of the Angle Benoit mat wrestling. And there's even times in this match where you could, it just kind of felt to me like Angle was wearing Michaels out. Even some of the facial reactions from Michaels, he was just like he just looked a little bit overwhelmed in terms of trying to mat wrestle Angle. But he held in there, and the beginning of the match felt very competitive. It was good, but the selling point for this match is just some of the counters. Michaels busted out some great high spots. Angle went to work on his back with, they did the angle slam onto the ring post. That was really cool. Just an exciting match. Like you knew the counters are going to be great, but you didn't know they were going to be this good. Super kick into the ankle lock, super kick into the angle slam, angle slam off the top rope. Michaels kicking out. I mean, that's Michaels kicking out of a super finisher right there. I would say, that's up there with one of the most exciting near falls in WrestleMania history. I'll tell you guys, like when this match came out, I think a lot of people felt the same way. Like this is a match you had to watch like every week. You're going back and replaying the DVD of this match, like maybe once a week. It was that good. And the one spot in the match where Michaels kept kicking out, then Angle was like all bloody, and he was trash talking to him. He was like, "Your days are done, Michaels. Now tap out." And then Michaels just super kicks him. Yeah, that was a great spot too, and I'm kind of torn because I think if Michaels had covered him right away, I think people would have believed that was the finish. But Michaels took like forever because he was still selling the abuse, and that's a tough call. But I think it's probably more important to tell a better story than to just go for the cheap near fall right there. And Angle looked like he didn't even want to kick out, so that was it ended up being great. Michaels tapping out to the ankle lock. It was genius, man. I don't think anyone expected it. And, not exactly the Shawn Michaels from 1998 when you look back at this thing. I don't think he would have ever done that, back in his heyday. But things have definitely changed. I don't think the match just did nothing but help both Angle and Michaels. When you look at SummerSlam, the Michaels had against Hogan, that got a killer buy rate. So it didn't, Michaels losing this match didn't hurt him at all. So yeah, definitely one of the best matches I've ever seen. I'm still going to say it's a 5-star match. And to me, like, this is the definitive Raw versus SmackDown dream match because you had never seen Michaels and Angle cross paths. So it was kind of proof that the brand extension, did work to a degree. All right, so from there, the other thing is you just had a lot of like segments on the show. You had Eugene came out, then Muhammad Hassan came out to mock Eugene, and then you had Hulk Hogan, who had his triumphant Hall of Fame speech where he was inducted by the legendary Sylvester Stallone, and Hogan had a lot of momentum at this time, and the overwhelming ovation for Hogan at the Hall of Fame was special. I mean, yeah, it was amazing how over Hogan was, and it's just a shame when you look back on it, like how much Hogan has fallen off since then in terms of popularity. But yeah, that really, WrestleMania weekend really set the tone for the great work that Hogan and HBK would do during the summertime right there. Then you also had the Piper's Pit with Stone Cold Steve Austin. It wasn't one of Austin and Piper's better moments. It was kind of a forgettable Piper's Pit. Carlito came out, and God, man, 2005, you just can't get away with some of the things that they said right now. It's crazy. Like Austin actually said, "Get in the ring with your little nappy hair," and then as soon as Carlito gets in the ring, he's like, "You look like alfalfa," and most, this is before the Imus incident, but I'm not going to go too much into depth, but I'll just say, those are two things that are actually considered, most people would consider racist right there. But hey, the Piper's Pit segment, it wasn't great. It gave Carlito a chance to, shine with two legends. So, it is what it is. All right, so from there, what was next after this? I think you had the Big Show match. So the Big Show actually took on Akebono, who's actually like a famous sumo wrestler from Japan, and really cool. I know nothing about this match in terms of it being real or was it a work? I have no idea. So you guys probably know better than me. Let me know. Sumo wrestling is, I believe, obviously I think it's a real sport, and the whole thing was they took away the ropes, and you have to be in the middle of a circle, and the object is to throw the guy out of the circle. So Big Show lasted like a couple, maybe like a minute and a half, but it was a pretty special moment, and to me, like, I'm not a big fan of the Big Show, but I don't mind him in like special attraction matches, whether it be Akebono, whether it be Mayweather. That's a better utilization of the Big Show instead of just, throwing him into a WrestleMania main event like WrestleMania 2000. So there we go with that. All right, so next up was actually JBL taking on John Cena. So JBL was the WWE champion for almost a year on SmackDown. And, they had been building this up for a while. When Angle was the SmackDown GM, they were going to name a number one contender. I'm trying to think who was the champion at the time. Yeah, it was Eddie Guerrero. So they were trying to name a number one contender when Angle was the SmackDown GM. They had like all the best guys from SmackDown out there. And, they had a close-up of John Cena, and they were like, and then a new number one contender, we're going to go with John Bradshaw Layfield. And then Cena's reaction was like, he was like so pissed. So you could just tell, even back to, the spring of 2004, eventually John Cena was actually going to have to face John Bradshaw Layfield. And, JBL's reign, you guys know what it was. Vince McMahon fell in love with the character, and it was the perfect heel for Cena to win the belt from. The build-up was really good, too. I would say that the build-up really, it just definitely had a lot of heat behind it. It made you really want to see Cena, finally take the belt off of JBL. All right, so when you get to the WrestleMania 21 match, a lot of people look back at this very negatively. Even Cena does. Like, I remember them asking Cena, what did you think about WrestleMania? And he's like, oh, man, I thought it was horrible. This was when Cena was doing the Marine, and they were in Los Angeles. So apparently they had, like, a lot of meetings leading up to WrestleMania, so he wasn't allowed to prepare for the match as much as he wanted to. And I just felt like this should have been a better team effort. A very important match, Cena's first title. You're finally taking it off of JBL, who had the belt for almost a whole year at that time. So it's like, man, I just feel like a lot more should have went into this match. When you watch the match back, Cena still had a ways to go. He was a little bit more closer to the Ultimate Warrior and Hercules than guys like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. So he definitely had a ways to go. I think a guy like Edge really would have helped Cena if he got to work with Edge at first, in terms of doing creative things, in terms of doing things, to work a crowd to get a babyface reaction. I do think that, looking back on it, I just felt like the match, it was just extremely rushed. We have seen, you saw Bradshaw always said, I smell like smoke because I've been through fire. Bradshaw went through a lot. You've seen him in all these dramatic championship matches where he would always rise to the occasion and find a way to win. And for him to lose like that, it was just kind of underwhelming. And they had Cena move to Raw, pretty quickly after this. And looking back on it, I understand why. They wanted Cena to be the face of the move to the USA Network. But ultimately, I think Cena would have had an easier transition moving over to Raw if he got his feet wet first on SmackDown, and maybe let Cena run with the championship on SmackDown until the next WrestleMania, just to kind of get just to get his feet wet. I kind of feel like Cena was kind of thrown into the fire by having him be the first draft pick to Raw as the champion. All those expectations, you could just tell Cena didn't take it very well as 2005 went on. So there we go with that. So Cena basically counters the clothesline from hell into the FU to get the pinfall in what was a pretty unspectacular WrestleMania match. I wouldn't say the worst WrestleMania match, but I would say probably one of the most disappointing WrestleMania matches. And then the main event, you had Batista challenging Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship. So the whole thing with Batista, he had come a long way. He was just kind of known as guy that didn't have a lot of brains, was just muscle, would just kind of come out, be like a bodyguard, do Triple H's dirty work. But over time, people started to notice the improvement of Batista, and people just started to respect him. In the summer of 2004, he started getting cheered, and there was definitely a cool factor to Batista. I think it's a lesson that we could all learn as wrestling fans. Like, sometimes the best thing is just to let guys naturally develop, and that's what happened here. Having Batista be the one to get the title shot against Triple H, it just didn't feel forced. It just felt like that was the right thing to do and the natural thing to do. The fans just kind of gravitated towards Batista as the year went on, and they would just do little things just to build for this match. Like, they had the championship just kind of sitting on a couch, and they did a close-up of Batista just kind of looking at it, and then the fans were starting to react. So you could just see the fans slowly just reacting to little things like that. And Batista was extremely over, man. They Triple H wanted him to go to SmackDown. He didn't want to see Batista as a threat to the title. So they did a lot of creative things with the buildup of this match, and they should be very proud of what they did. They really got a lot of people to be invested in Batista chasing Triple H. Now the actual match, I would say it was pretty good. It's definitely a lot better than a lot of Triple H's main events. I think they did they actually had a pretty good match. It wasn't bad. The counter to the pedigree was pretty awesome. Triple H actually got busted open from a slingshot hitting the ring post, so it gave the match some drama. The crowd was still, the crowd really, after Angle Michaels, I felt like this WrestleMania never got the crowd back, so it was tough to follow Angle and Michaels. Maybe that was one of the problems here, but I still thought it was an engaging story. You have Flair, being a pain in the ass on the ringside, and Batista overcoming the odds. It made Batista look extremely strong, and it was a great moment. I think Batista's push was very well done. I was actually a big fan of Batista in 2005. The feud with Triple H was great. I love the relationship and the matches he had with Eddie when he moved to SmackDown. But the problem with Batista, to me, the biggest problem with him was he just kept getting hurt. But I felt like at this time, he was healthy and just had a lot of momentum behind him. And so it was a great moment right there. Really good match between Batista and Triple H. It was pretty good. It wasn't bad. It's definitely not on the same level as Orton Triple H or some of Triple H's lackluster WrestleMania main events. This one is somewhere in the middle in terms of WrestleMania main events. Not one of the worst, but not one of the best either. And just a solid way to close out a great WrestleMania. So that's pretty much it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the WrestleMania 21 review, and I'm out. All right.